I call it a panograph because it's a panorama and it's a graphic. I do not call engaging myself in the artistic, documenting, or scientific areas a conflict of interest with my commercial assignments. It's that I always plan my projects from the concept until the actual execution. So it doesn't really matter if it's for a client or for fashion photography or a free project. For a client, of course, I can't do the lighting setups that I have or the model poses that are kind of experimental. And for fashion photography, I always have a designer there who wants their clothes to look a certain way and to bring a certain message across. But for my personal projects, I can just do it over a period of time, however I like it. But still, there's always a plan and maybe a sketch, and then I do it. And most of my own projects have been going on for years. For example, the Panography project, I've been working on that for 4 years, and the gallery just came in 2009 and asked me about the exhibition, which I was glad to do because I finally saw that somebody looked at all I had and thought this was worth having an exhibition for. It was a positive surprise because the chances aren't that big that they find the one who initiated this. There are so many people who do it right now that they could have as well found the website of somebody else. I guess there aren't very many people who have it on their actual websites. It's just on the internet and those little programs that have this effect now, where you can do panography effect, like the Picnic website. It's not really a commercial exhibition. They still want to, they say it's art, and they put it on the art market in a limited edition. And still, the pieces should be sold in some way, so they can't be too expensive. But I'm not working for somebody. I'm not trying to make anybody else happy. I'm just trying to make it so that I like the picture. Like, I stop when I want, and I do something new when I want. I even have some photos that I shot that I never put together because I was bored with the subject. And it's good that even when I work on something for a while, in the end it all pays off as one big final exhibition. I basically did one whenever I traveled to a place. For example, in 2007 I was in New York, and one afternoon I thought I'm going to go to Times Square now and do one there. And then when I was in Berlin for work, I just even borrowed somebody else's camera to take hundreds of pictures of Potsdamer Platz. Or I did some here, and I looked for different interesting places. For example, one was an old industrial building with interesting light, and one is just the inside of an interesting architectural building. Or it's this place where a lot of things move. At the fair, there's this moving giant arm with people in it, and there are people walking by. And you can see little scenes where somebody talks to another one, or they're scared of something, or they just meet up for something and fight. And if you zoom in those pictures, by the way, you can see little scenes happening. Whenever I did it, except in 2 places, I never asked before. I just went and did it, and then later showed the picture to the person who has the rights for the place. But everybody said yes so far. I don't see it as picking up where David Hockney left off in the beginning of the 80s. He didn't do very many of his pictures. They all look very different. He took real photographs and just aligned them or put them next to each other to create a line, or some of them were Polaroids. It was just him trying to look from different angles and have kind of a high dynamic range look by having a different exposure for each frame that he used. And he wanted to make this thing more complete looking onto it from the outside. But I go from the inside and look out. I take a place and show a three-dimensional piece on 2 dimensions. And I don't use different exposures. I want the whole thing to look as if it was one picture, but in a super perspective, super wide angle. You can't even do 360 degrees except with those cameras who do it automatically, where you have this head. But I don't want to achieve that effect because I want to go and take pictures over time, where something moves or a train comes and then leaves again. I'm not trying to focus on a certain thing, I'm just trying to focus on the shifting time and how things evolve over the 30-45 minutes that I take the pictures. And I try to catch when something changes, when a bird comes, or people meet, or somebody leaves who was there before. And I can't always use all of my photos that I take because in some areas a lot of things change often and quickly. And I have to pick whatever looks the best to use in the final picture. Okay. Actually, my first panograph was out of my home window from an older apartment where I lived. I was just looking up onto roofs and windows of other houses, and I wanted to get it all in for myself just to remember how this looked when I was living there. But I didn't have the right wide angle for it. I needed at least 180 degrees because I also wanted the wall on it. And so I took 9 or maybe 15 pictures of the area. None of those had a perfect composition inside. Like each frame was kind of weird, but all together they had this nice view that could show everything. And I felt like, yeah, this is what it looks like. I was happy that the project was interesting and complex enough, meaning the concept of it, because I didn't have very many panographs by then. I only had 6 or so. Interesting enough for the gallery to actually make an exhibition and to ask me to create more. That way I was able to use what I had accumulated before, all of my standards that I set for this, and use those to execute more pictures and make more. Then I made 16, and now 11 are chosen for the exhibition. I've always been told that I take pictures of objects in a way that's different from how people would normally see them. And back when I was younger, I didn't really understand why people had this feeling that I did this, but I think it's that I just like to take things out of context as I take a picture of them. Sometimes the building means something completely different when you don't know what it is, or as something that is an everyday thing when you photograph that separately and don't have the normal usage with it, then it seems like something else. It's just the way I see things anyway, and I'm not trying to make it look like this, it just happens. I call them false photographs because the actual final picture does not show one moment frozen in time, which a photograph would do, and also the lines aren't the way they would be in a photograph. They are all crooked and don't give a straight line or even a perfectly curved one as a lens would give. Instead, they show the bridge between what your eye sees in a room and the final picture that you have of this room in your head. It's like these crooked lines that then become the impression that you have of the room. It's the way your eyes would actually see the room and perceive it. And these pictures are already laid out the way that you would see different areas when you look at this. Like when you focus a corner in a room or a line, and your brain makes it a straight line, and you know it's a 90-degree angle or whatever, but it doesn't look like this from here. This way you get a super perspective of everything around you.